Welcome to the fifth session in the series on my personal finance and my use of Bharosa Club uh, to help with my personal finance. So in this section, we are going to talk about how to transact, and also we're going to talk a bit about taxes. Now, if I look at my overall portfolio, both in the US and India, it may surprise you to know that I actually only have two sites in India, Bharosa Club, which I use to help, and Zerodha and small case. So Zerodha and small case, I'm counting as kind of one, but they're actually different. So let's say four sites. So Bharosa Club, Zerodha, small case, and Fidelity Investments. So I do not have a bank account in the US because Fidelity Investments provides me a checking account. And they also, I use credit cards and debit cards from them. In addition, I do have one card from Chase, JP Morgan Chase, and that's about it. So for a fairly large portfolio spread across many countries, or rather two countries, I have just a few accounts which I transact. So that lends itself to a lot of simplicity. It helps me monitor whatever I want. And it also helps me to become a relative expert in transacting on these sites. That is what I would encourage you to think of, is that you limit the number of sites that you use, but understand each site by playing around with it, looking at help, talking to customer support if they have one, and so on and so forth. So you become a reasonable expert of that. So with that preamble, let me get started on what do I use Bharosa Club for transacting. Earlier I used to use it a fair amount, but now because I used to use mutual funds a lot, then I found out that because I file taxes both in the US and in India, that mutual funds usage in India can become fairly complicated for US tax reasons. And therefore, I have gradually moved away from mutual funds to small case. But that was the start of it. Now, as I've moved away, I've realized that for quite a few things, small cases or baskets of stocks are kind of better than mutual funds. So I kind of like that more. I'll cover that later in another session on why that is so on small case. But let's see. So what do I currently use for transacting on Bharosa? So if you see here, there is a Transact tab and my portfolio I'd shown you in an earlier session where I have only mainly tax savings funds. So let's start first with the portfolio because that will show you where I need to transact. So here I have this money lying in these tax saving funds and it's locked in for 3 years. Now, once the lock-in expires, I should actually get out of these and reinvest wherever I choose, but without this lock-in thing. And now with the tax laws in India changing, and since in this session we're also going to talk about taxes, it may be likely that I will not take this tax saving exemption and choose a lower tax rate in India because I don't take exemptions. So these tax saving investments in mutual funds will end up becoming history. And maybe in a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I will have no exposure at all to mutual funds. So a further simplification. But now that I have these mutual funds, I need to monitor when the 3-year lock-in expires. And then I will be able to transact on them. So let's go in here on the side here. And I click on that and I see that on 11th July 2017, I had made a purchase. So on 12th July 2020, I will be able to liquidate this and redeem it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I could do that using Transact on Bharosa. So, okay, so here I go to Transact. Okay, so here this is like it has these Bharosa picks, invest more, any fund, and then these SIP plus and SWP plus. So very quickly on this, so the Bharosa picks, what Bharosa does is that in various categories of mutual funds, it gives its top pick, okay, and it also has here the ICICI approved Sensex index fund and the overnight fund, which are the funds which are used for Wealthsimple. So this is the Wealthsimple debt fund and the Wealthsimple equity fund. Okay, now this is just to tell you that, okay, these are the few funds which Bharosa kind of recommends and uses. So, and what Bharosa recommends is that you don't diversify more. So if you had just one large cap fund, one tax saving fund, one mid cap fund, that may be good enough. And you might use Wealthsimple or whatever, right? Now, it so happens, if you look here, that currently all the funds are from this fund house called Axis Mutual Fund. And the Bharosa Club does not have any relationship with Axis, but basically that's what it's coming out like. And these funds are performing well. So now let's say I wanted to buy something in the Axis blue chip fund. So I'll just take that. The minimum amount comes there, it's 5,000. So I just could sort of submit that. And it then comes into this screen and I can check all this. And then I can go into, okay, here. And now this is integration with the mutual fund utility. Okay, so it basically is showing you their screen on which you can transact. And then you can choose how you're going to pay, either through net banking, NEFT, RTGS, or PayEasy. So since I have a PayEasy, I can select that. And then it says, okay, my account, which ends with 0375 with ICICI Bank, will get debited. This is my reference number for the PayEasy, and I have a maximum of 1 crore. And I just got to accept the terms and conditions and submit, and the transaction will be done. So as simple as that. But of course, to get here, you have to have your CAD, your PayEasy, and all this kind of thing. Or if not your PayEasy, then you need to transact using NEFT, net banking, or RTGS. So these are the methods here. Now, since I do not want to transact and buy this, I will just cancel out of this. And so this is being canceled. So it just says that the transaction has been canceled, and it will be in my order book here with a canceled kind of notation. Now I go back to Transact, and I could invest more. So in my current holdings, which were there, and this includes holdings that I had at one point in time, but I got out of. So you can see there are a lot of them that I held at some point in time and got out of. But now, when I'm thinking of investing more, it says, okay, do you want to start with something that you've never invested in before, or do you want to invest in your current holdings or something that you've invested in before? And it makes it easy to do that if you want to invest. Or you can choose any fund that you wanted to invest in, and then it helps you to find that fund by choosing some things here. Now, Bharosa doesn't have sector funds and dividend options and so on and so forth, because it doesn't recommend those. So you may not find the fund that you want to invest in, and you need to understand what Bharosa's thinking is. If you find that there was a particular fund that you're interested in investing in, but it's not there and it fits in with the Bharosa philosophy, you can always write to advisory@bharosaclub.com and try and get them to include that. But it's also a red flag for you in a little way, because Bharosa Club has a lot of funds which is already included. So if you are wanting to invest in a fund which is not included, then you should have a strong reason. Maybe it's a new fund, maybe it's something that has started performing very well that people are not aware of, but you found out or whatever. And then the SIP Plus and SWP Plus are where in your SIP Plus, you could invest a fixed amount in a fund. And the advantage of doing it through an SIP Plus is that you can set this up and cancel it at any time, right? Rather than having to go through a rather complicated process for setting up an SIP or canceling an SIP. The only thing is that here, since these fund houses have higher minimums for lump sum transactions compared to SIP transactions, this thing, so as long as you are okay with a higher amount for your SIP over the minimum, which is around 5,000 rupees, then SIP Plus works very well for you. And then you have SWP Plus, which is where you can, like SIP, you can set up a systematic withdrawal plan where if you're a retired person and you want to withdraw from this fund, like try to do a salary replacement, then you can set this up and that amount will be redeemed on a regular basis from your fund as long as the fund has money. So these are the functionalities which are there in Transact. And once you transact through Bharosa, then after a few days, the transaction will reflect in your portfolio, and you will also, it will also be there in your capital gains when you want to file capital gains. So if you look at it right in this particular financial year, which started on April 1, 20, so in 2019, 2020, okay, so in that year, so these are some of the transactions that I did where I sold things, because gains are only when you sell. So I bought it at this, I'd redeemed so many units, the redeemed value was so much, my short-term capital gain was 0, but my long-term capital gain was this. And the taxable part, because the rules for taxability on capital gains are a little complicated, so Bharosa does all those calculations for you and then tells you whether you have. So if you see, I had a loss of 14,000 on long-term capital gains on a taxable thing, and on short-term capital gains, I had a gain of 54 lakhs in terms of my taxable stuff. So this helps me file my tax returns, and I can download this as a PDF. I can view it also. So I'll just take a quick view here, and this shows you the a view of the same thing. Okay, so you can get a fairly detailed report also if you download the PDF. Okay, so we are done with that, and now I just want to spend a few minutes talking to you more about the so I'm going to just stop the share because I don't need this anymore. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about taxes, because this is some important learning that I've picked up over the years and some of the mistakes that I've made. So like most people, I also tried to minimize taxes, not realizing that taxes are an expense and sometimes paying taxes may be a very good strategy. So, you know, one of the things that I have come to believe now is that if you look at your portfolio and you think of it like an agricultural crop, so there is a time for sowing in agriculture, there's a time for growing the crop, and there's a time for harvesting the crop. So if you follow that, then it may be when markets run up a lot, you should actually book some of your gains, even though they may result in taxes, pay the taxes. And that way, with rebalancing, you will be able to smooth out the volatilities of the market and probably maximize your gains over time. So I've done a fair amount of calculations and modeling and so on and so forth. And I found that, yes, rebalancing even after tax does really help. So that is something that you could consider. And because I did not do this and I invested a fairly large amount of money in Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, now I'm sitting on a very large amount of gains, and the relative size of Berkshire Hathaway in my portfolio has become quite large. But till recently, I was quite reluctant to sell it because if I sold, then I would have a pretty large and hefty capital gain. But then I did some calculations and came to the conclusion. So now I'm in this mode of selling a little bit every year so that Berkshire Hathaway doesn't have this huge proportion in my portfolio, and I kind of diversify a little bit and try and increase my gains on an overall basis. And so I might end up for this year paying taxes of about $50,000 or so, but that's fine, because if it helps me earn more, then paying taxes is a very good thing. So the general thing is that, yes, if you earn more, then you pay more taxes, and that's fine. So I think I'd like you to sort of keep that in mind. And with that, I'm going to stop this particular session. Thank you very much for listening to me. Okay, so I'm going to end this.